legislators who are elected by the people look at the office with an eye single to loyalty that they owe to the voters who placed them in office. And so we have tried to discourage, in as many ways as we felt were appropriate, legislators from self-creating more conflicts of interest than they may bring to the position anyway. We have a part-time legislature. We think it has served the state of Utah very, very well. We believe that most people who seek public office do so because they are interested in providing a civic service and in performing a constructive service for those who elect them. Our view of this code of conduct, and if you've received a copy of the executive summary which we've prepared, is that it is intended not to penalize anyone, but to keep honest people honest. Indeed, code of conduct does not criminalize anything. There are no penalties provided for violation of its conditions. And the Ethics Commission itself cannot impose sanctions on anyone, cannot discipline anyone. If it finds that there has been inappropriate conduct, it has the authority to make those findings and recommendations, A, public by posting them on the legislative website, and B, forwarding them to the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate for such further disciplinary action as those respective bodies feel is warranted under the circumstances and under the law. And third, if the Commission finds that there has been an indication or evidence of criminal conduct, it can refer its findings to a local prosecutor for prosecution under the criminal statutes. So the third thing that the bill does is provide a set of procedures for this commission to operate. And we have tried very, very hard to make these fair, to make them balanced as between the concerns of legislators for protection from spurious complaints or frivolous complaints, and balanced with respect to citizens and the expectations they have. Number one, that legislators would conduct themselves in an ethical way, and number two, that where there are instances of questionable conduct, there might be an effective and a transparent and a public way of dealing with those questionable acts or questionable conduct. I guess I could go on, but I would invite you to read the initiative in its entirety. It is available at our website, www.utahethics.org. And I'll say in conclusion that we did not attempt to provide a remedy for every possible problem. Like most pieces of important legislation, for some, the bill that we have prepared and drafted does not go far enough. For others, it may go too far. It doesn't deal with every possible problem, but we believe it is a reasonable step in the right direction, and we believe that it deserves public support. It has to be read carefully. It is drafted with an eye to economy. We understand that under the law of initiative, we have to provide a copy of the statute with every petition that is circulated. And so in drafting, we very deliberately and carefully try to avoid killing too many trees and presenting a bill that would be 55 or 75 pages in length. And that's one reason that we focus only on one branch of government, because for simplicity's sake and for some reasons of constitutional concern, it made sense to narrow that focus, and that's what we did. And then my last comment, and I'll sit down, is that many people are not fully aware that in Utah, the legislative power of the state, under our state constitution, is vested co-equally with the elected legislature and with the citizens of the state acting through the law of initiative. An initiative is a constitutional vehicle by which the voters of the state may express their legislative preference and create state law on a co-equal basis with elected members of the legislature sitting as the legislature. And so, in dealing with this issue of legislative ethics, it's important to understand that the people, as citizen legislators, co-equal with the elected members of the Senate and the House, can absolutely prescribe and proscribe what is inappropriate conduct for their elected officials, whether they're members of the legislature or members of the executive or judicial branches of government. And with that, I'll sit down and would be happy to respond to questions.
Thanks, Dave. Don't go too far. We've already had an opportunity to hear from our local citizen. And so what we want to do now is open the floor for questions. I would remind you that we'd like to limit comment, question to 2 minutes and make sure that we have an adequate time to give a proper response. And when you do, you'll see some instruction under point 6 on the agenda. It's important for the public record that if you want to ask a question, you state your name. And what's not on there is actually, we need a title, which means basically, how are you currently referred to? It could be everything from a city legislator to a business owner to a retired citizen, whatever. But we need some sort of a title. And then what city and county of residence you represent or you live in, okay? You know, we just barely touched on that. Would you like me to spend a few more minutes on the signature gathering process first? Okay. And that after the signature process will begin. And the requirements are pretty significant. We have to achieve 10% of the population who voted in the last governor's election in every Senate district in the state, okay? And so there'll be organized teams to do this. There'll be petition packets, I think of 20 signatures per packet, and they'll be coordinated by various district chairs, Carmen, for example, in the southwest area here. All of those signatures have to be validated on the local level and then presented and consolidated back in Salt Lake City, where a team will pull the database together and present them, I believe, to the Lieutenant Governor's office for final verification that we've met that goal. If we're able to get 5% by mid-November, there is a process by which the legislature then will be required to vote on this initiative straight up or down at the next session. If we don't meet that goal, then obviously that's 5%. And then but we still have until April to get our full 10%. So the process will kick off right at the end of this month, first part of October. And if you have some specific questions about the signature process, I'd be happy to go into more detail with that. But that is the overview and the requirement for us throughout the state. Let's start with one.
Okay. Well, I'm Georgia Barker, and I'm from St. George, and I'm a citizen. I'm wondering why you chose a 5-member commission, and then the idea that it would be the 5 people would be chosen in a random drawing. Would there be any effort at all made in terms of having the city, counties, and rural and all of that represented? In other words, how are you going to have a good base? And is it necessary in terms of age or things like that so that you have a representation?
That's really a good question. Let me start with the first one first. There was no rocket science involved in picking a 5-member commission. Some states have a 5-member commission, others have larger commissions. We settled on the number 5 simply because it seemed to us to be a more workable number. Principle A was that we wanted an odd number of commission members because we just felt that there was a problem if the commission could deadlock. And so